All right, strivers, welcome to another short with Daddy Long. I still love that name. I think it's hilarious. Uh, but today, I'm just gonna be talking about ChatGPT 4, or just GPT 4, and how it can be used in multiple situations to write code. Specifically, I'm gonna focus on Kadena's Pact and Godot. I like making games. Dad Bod is being built using the Godot game engine, and I've tried to use Pact a couple of times to write Godot code that would do what I want. And being completely honest, I'm just going to say that ChatGPT is not amazing at, well, unless you are incredibly articulate. And I should say perhaps verbose in requesting what you want. I kind of say that he's a little bit like an insanely intelligent 5-year-old who knows a butt ton of crap about everything, but you must be very specific or he's just going to go off the rails on some tangent that you weren't necessarily wanting or expecting him to do. So he excels greatly at specific tasks like just coming up like generating ideas. He is not incredibly good, and I say he. I have a friend who says she. I don't know. I think of ChatGPT as a he, but like he isn't great at, unless you are very verbose again and articulate in what you want. He isn't amazing at generating complex programs, is what I found. So I can take Godot as an example. I asked him to build an entity component system in Godot, and I mean he got pretty close. Like what he built would work, but it doesn't mesh with what I already have and what I've already built. And even though I tried to ask him to build something that would match what I personally had already constructed in some way, shape, or form, right? And so he's incredibly powerful, but ChatGPT requires that we, the people interacting with him, are incredibly articulate and capable of describing what it is that we want, what we dream of, what we see. Bless you, honey. Sorry. Unless we're capable of describing very precisely what it is that we want to him. And I do recognize that now you can provide images to GPT-4. I don't think ChatGPT has that functionality yet. At least I was trying to find it and I couldn't. And so that really, I don't know how to pass images to ChatGPT. I've seen people do it. I need to look it up. It took like 5 minutes, 10 minutes to try and figure it out, and I couldn't. So just kind of decided I would just stick with text for now. So I mean, I'm streaming this on YouTube. I also have a podcast going, Twitter Space. I'm going to show examples of things that I have asked ChatGPT and the responses that I've received from ChatGPT. They aren't going to be super great like on the Twitter Space, but I'll do my best to describe all of the things that I'm doing and saying so that on the Twitter Space it still makes sense. So first and foremost, we have our Kadena Pact. And let's see, I had an example here. I have tons of questions on Flutter, and I've had him write a lot of Flutter code for me. But again, he wasn't incredibly good at it because I wasn't verbose enough. And a lot of that just has to do with me being not super clear on precisely what I wanted. So on the YouTube channel, I'm gonna hop over to development. Just see this. So this is a picture of the Pact question that I asked him, and I really just wanted to see if ChatGPT 4 could actually write Pact code, because I tried to get GPT 3 to write Pact code, and my goodness, he couldn't. He simply couldn't. So some back end thing has been changed or upgraded, or he's been retrained on additional information, perhaps from GitHub, to help him know how to write Pact code, because he is now able to write fetching Pact code, and that is amazing. So he can write very simple functions, and honestly, I've been using GitHub Copilot to write a lot of my code, especially when I'm writing very simple smart contracts. He is very, very good at it. And a lot of, like, if I just give a simple description of the function that I want, and I have him write that function for me, GitHub Copilot is really able to do that, and ChatGPT can do it as well. So that's where you need to get articulate and granular about the things that you want. Again, insanely intelligent 5-year-old struggles with generating complex things. This is also part of just how he's built. He responds in a block of text. And he also runs out, can easily run out of the number of acceptable, I think it's phonemes, just characters, words that he's allowed to print out. And so he just kind of runs out of steam in the middle of a sentence, and you're like, please keep going. And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll keep going. But this, being able to write this Pact code is game changing. ChatGPT 3 could write Solidity code really, really well. I used him to write a couple of Solidity smart contracts. He was not good at writing Pact code. So this upgrade, already game changer for the Kadena ecosystem, hands down. Amazing. Amazing, amazing stuff. Because now you can just have ChatGPT write your smart contract for you, the foundation of it, and then you can go in and you can make a lot of the modifications yourself. So just reading through this code, for example, it's we start the smart module contract, and I love the comments that he gives, right? He describes what he's building. So we've got a module NFT demo, gov, this is awesome. I asked him there should be a gov def cap used for module governance that enforces a named key set. There should be a function that is protected by the gov def cap that lets me add NFTs to the table. And I also said that there should be an NFT table that can store an account, a guard, a name, and a URI. So he added all these things. So there's a def schema. It's laid out beautifully. It's perfect. It doesn't have a doc string, but that's totally fine. I probably could have asked him to, instead of adding comments at the beginning of functions, to add doc strings. That would have been perfect. But he created a def schema. So he created our object. He created our def table. Really awesome. And it leverages the NFT that's above it. He has this random use Kadena ledger in here. Again, I don't know why that's there, but that's okay. Easily we can get rid of that. He's got a def cap gov. It enforces a gov key set. Also super awesome. He has a defun gov key set to define a governance key set. This isn't necessary. He added it in here. Yeah, he doesn't really understand what this read key set is meant to do. Looks like to me it looks like the 5-year-old portion just said, this looks important, and he just kind of slapped it in here, right? So I would immediately delete this. But then lastly, he's got this function to add an NFT to the table. And this is honestly where stuff gets really cool, is this is the more complex piece of all of this, right? And he's got a beautifully written function. I don't know if it's properly laid out in terms of the parentheses that you would need to make it all work, but it's still it is at least insanely close to what you would want. It's got all the inputs, so it accepts an account, a name, a URI, and it creates a module guard, which is not good. So it should probably accept a guard in the function. But again, if I had been more verbose, more articulate, clear, detailed with what I was requesting, He would have definitely gotten this right. So basically what I'm trying to say is that at the foundation of all of this, I believe that in a year to 2 years, we will no longer be writing code. And we will be simply telling AIs what we wish to build. And those who are very articulate and clear and capable of expressing precisely what it is they want built will be the ones who are most able to leverage these AIs. So, that being said, anybody can come into ChatGPT and have ChatGPT generate code for them. What sets the individuals apart, at least I should say for now, this might change, but I don't think so. I think that we will always need to be intentional and articulate with what we want the AI to build for us, unless, obviously, we want it to take creative liberties. So we need to be very clear, and the clearer we can get about what we want it to do, the better it is, the better the AI will be at generating and creating the response that we desire. And what this means is we need to have a comprehension of the principles at play. We need to understand the different, we'll say, data structures, for example, that go into the creation of a Pact smart contract. We need to understand the flow of information between the website, the D app that people are working with, the smart contract that they're working with, and the wallet. We need to have a comprehension of that flow, roughly. And we need to be able to describe and explain that information to the AI so that it can use it to build things. Looks like someone said we might need to get good at prompt engineering. And yep, I would say that is exactly what we need to get good at. We need to be able to describe what we want, what we need to the AI so that it can make it. And the better that you can get at this, the more granular that you can get, and like if you break your problem into its smallest pieces and you describe those pieces to ChatGPT, like honestly, if you ask him to make an individual function, he can do it. Like amazingly. And an example of that is I asked him to make a Flutter dark theme for me, and he built the entire thing. And this is amazing. Like I wouldn't have wanted to try and figure out how to do this myself. I have actually tried to figure out how to build a dark theme for myself multiple times, and I have failed every time. The theme data for Flutter is, to me, it feels really convoluted. I haven't found a good place with all the documentation, like just a picture. It's like, here is this color, here's that color, but ChatGPT, like he's able to leverage, like, again, insanely smart 5-year-old, and I told him exactly what I wanted. And he built exactly what I wanted. He did not, however, include things that I didn't ask for. Again, no surprise there. Like, there's a couple of things in this theme that I needed, and I'll probably come back and I'll just be like, hey, ChatGPT, yo, I need this set up so that I can do, like, these colors exist here, these borders are there, all that good stuff. And honestly, the best thing, one way to get really, really clear is just to pass in images. So my next step is going to be determining how to pass images into GPT-4 so he can build my UI components for me, because that is where stuff is going to get super fetch and dope. Like, that's going to be so cool. But yeah, so the world will, once AI starts to really take over a lot of this, and it already has, honestly, the world is going to be at the mercy of those who are very, very good at describing what they want. And they are very good at describing what they want because they understand the underlying principles at play. So I was talking about the D app perspective, but this can be true for a game as well. It's like, unless I know precisely how to structure a game or something like that, I mean, I can't really tell an AI how I want it to be built. Unless the AI, of course, is building everything. So, but I feel like that's a long ways out. I don't know if there's going to be an AI that can just build you all of the files, like generate, like create your files for you, so you don't have to copy and paste anything, accept your assets for you. There's a lot still left to do before you have an AI that's capable of doing all of that. Sorry, I'm thinking through all of the things that you would need to actually make that happen. Interesting. Honestly, between DALL-E and ChatGPT 4, you could probably create something using the GPT endpoints that would help you build a game. The question then becomes, like, how do you communicate with them? Are you just sharing images, or are you going beyond that in some way? I don't know. Games are more complex than like a mobile app, though. Interesting things to think about. So, all of this being said, I'm gonna, next week, my goal and what I'm going to do is I'm going to stream my work on the multi-chain IDO for at least 1 hour every day. And I'm going to be using ChatGPT to build my stuff. And my goal is actually, I don't want to write a single line of code. I want to be copying and pasting code from ChatGPT into my IDE. I don't want to write code for it. I really want to learn how to use ChatGPT as effectively as possible. And so next week is going to be my crash course. And I'm going to see how good I can get at, as Sergio Ardila said, prompt engineering. How, like, breaking my problems down, describing components, or I guess in Flutter term, widgets that need to be built, describing services that need to be built and leveraged, used, and all of that good stuff. So that's going to be, that honestly, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really curious. I know that I've gotten really annoyed, like trying to ask ChatGPT to generate test cases for me. Oh yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch, Tori. It's going to be a little frustrating from my standpoint, because I'll be like, I know exactly what I would type. It would be so easy to just type it. But we'll see, like, if I can get good enough, or like just finding, right now at least, I guess, an appropriate balance between like having ChatGPT write code for me and having me write code for me. So, where was I? Oh, let's give an example of where ChatGPT really fails. Or I should say not fails, but where I failed to be articulate in what I wanted. Okay, so this is a lot, but I've been working on Wallet Connect Flutter, and I've been building a tool that uses something called the Chain Agnostic Improvement Proposal, and I talked about this yesterday, to communicate the available resources between a DApp and a wallet. So what this means is basically the available resources that a wallet provides are, we have private keys, and what are the public keys to those private keys? What are the methods that are available that can be called on me, the wallet, from the DApp? And what events do I, as the wallet, emit to the DApp based on things that happen? Like, let's say that I change my account, or I know Cadex, not Cadex, it's not Cadex, Eco, I forgot their name. They have a specific event that they emit from their wallet when you do swaps, so that the UI in the DEX can update. So all of these like those are the resources that a wallet can provide. And the chain agnostic improvement proposal 25, CAPE 25, defines that communication and the objects that you request information, like you request those resources, and how you are supposed to send them back. And so I've been trying to build a function that will effectively take all of the available resources in a wallet and take all of the requested resources from the DApp and just create your requested resources and send them back. And I wanted to create test cases for this. And honestly, like I failed in this. I'm able to send him all of my code, right? And I just said, I'm trying to create unit tests for the construct namespaces function. This was my first failing. First failing was I needed to describe to GPT what my function was meant to do. And get him involved from start to finish instead of just this finishing piece. Not to say that he couldn't be involved in this finishing piece, but I just needed to be more articulate. Again, I needed to describe precisely what it is I wanted the function to do, so that one, ChatGPT could detect errors in my function, and two, so that he could actually create test cases for my function that satisfied my description. That's all I needed to do, but I failed. I totally failed. And so I gave him lots of information, like said the available accounts is a map from chain ID to the available accounts. Like I gave him lots of information regarding the data types and structures, because ChatGPT 100% needs that, or he can't make test cases. He can't make intelligent decisions. He can deduce things, but I found he's not really, really good at deducing. I mean, nobody's good at deducing. If you don't have the information available to you, like, what you gonna do? There's not really that much you can do. For example, if I don't tell him what the required namespaces is, like this, let's see if I can find an example of it. Oh, there it is. If I don't tell him what the required namespaces object contains, then he's not going to know that it needs a methods and an events object or a list in here. So getting that granular is how you get ChatGPT to bend to your will, so to speak. And that is how we need, that is what we need to learn, friends. If any of us would like to use ChatGPT to build stuff and to progress insanely fast, and honestly to build stuff insanely fast, we must get insanely good at describing precisely what it is we need. And thus we must know, before we enter the room, precisely what it is that we need. And to do that, we need to understand the tools and principles that we have and that we must rely on to build the application. So that's ChatGPT. I've got a couple of plans for him. I've got the multi-chain IDO next week that I'm going to be using him for. I'm also going to be using him to create a simple web extension. Maybe not extension. If you guys know the websites that you've been to that have a little bubble in the bottom right or bottom left of the screen, and it's like, hey, chat with me. It's like, I can answer your questions. I'm just going to make a really simple UI front end for ChatGPT that sits in the bottom right corner of a website, so that I can just slap ChatGPT into any website I want and provide prompts to him based perhaps on the current page the user is looking at. That idea needs to be fleshed out a bit more, but I'm going to use ChatGPT to make a ChatGPT interactive tool. And I think that's gonna be a lot of fun. Using ChatGPT to make ChatGPT work from other websites is going to be really interesting. But I'm going to use that, and I'm going to plug it into all of my courses. So if anybody has questions while they're going through my course, they can just ask ChatGPT a question in the course. Like they can pause my video, like whatever I'm describing, go to ChatGPT, ask some questions, perhaps get up to speed, and then hop back to the video. And that's going to be my hope. I really hope that what that does is it helps people learn faster and get unstuck without me needing to be present for any and every problem that occurs. And my end goal with that is just I want my courses to be an amazing user experience, to be really, really focused on the learning of the people taking the courses. And ChatGPT, just any AI model really, as long as it knows what it's talking about, is going to be, or is, a phenomenal tool for building experiences like that. Like, so fetching cool. And I would say from there, like, one of the things that I want to do is use ChatGPT to govern NPCs in video games. Like, I just think that would be the coolest thing ever. Is sorry, Tori, let's see. I'll be fine-tuning the model with all of my written content for my courses, so that if people ask a question specifically about my course, it will have the available information for that. I won't be training it on more general Pact, beyond the files that are used for my course. So like the Pact code that you write throughout my course. But yeah, AI NPCs, Tori, like those are gonna be so fetching dope. Like, just imagine that you walk up to this dwarf in VR or something like that, I don't care, it doesn't matter, maybe MMORPG, first-person role-playing game, I don't care. You walk up to this dwarf, he's got this massive warhammer on his back, and every time you talk to him, it's a different experience, right? Because he's run by ChatGPT. And you basically just told ChatGPT, hey, you are a 4-foot, 260-pound dwarf with a massive warhammer on your back. You have a scar over your left eye, and you have 2 quests for any person that talks with you. And maybe you give him a bit of background so you can tell ChatGPT, it's like, you fought in this war, in this battle, and you know about the X, Y, and Z. And you're only, like, if the player asks you questions, like, oh, just open-ended questions, you're allowed to talk about these things. Or maybe as a dwarf, you just start going off into stories, and you start talking about these different experiences that you've had. And you've given the dwarf a background, and ChatGPT is able to leverage that background, that information, and perhaps some of the world information that is available to it as well, to give this dwarf life. And then if the player asks about the 2 like, is there anything he can do? Is there anything I can do? And the dwarf's like, oh, the ChatGPT knows, okay, there's these 2 quests that are available, and I can tell the player about these things. And ChatGPT would respond and act like that dwarf, 260-pound, 4-foot dwarf. Like, that would be so cool. And I'm going to pursue that. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to use ChatGPT and Dadbot, actually, to generate questions. That's my kind of first step. That's the first thing I'd like to tackle, is figuring out a way to use ChatGPT to ask you, the player, questions. And I restructured the question system so that it could function using something like ChatGPT as a backend for it. You can load questions in using JSON objects, and if I can get ChatGPT to generate a JSON object for me, then I can have ChatGPT generate any question, which gets really fetching cool the moment that you have data on the questions that an individual has potentially struggled on. So let's say that I ask you a question about Pact, and specifically writing a function inside of a module in Pact. And let's say it takes you 5 minutes to figure that question out. And so perhaps I can tell ChatGPT that information, like I can pass the information of your previous statistics to ChatGPT and be like, hey, how long did and just tell him to generate a new question based on available resources for you, the player, that will be most beneficial to you, that will most help you learn the content. So that's gonna be so cool. Oh man, I am excited for that. I haven't worked on Dad Bod at all this week, but next week, I've been trying to get this Wallet Connect Flutter stuff out of the way because I have multiple people who need it, and I also need money. I need to get paid for it. I need to get paid. So completing that, getting that out of the way, will make time so I can work on Dad Bod. But man, I'm so excited. Like using this ChatGPT stuff to really accelerate the learning. It's like Duolingo has started using it. Khan Academy has started using it, and man, I think it's gonna change the way people learn. Like brick and mortar institutions, it's like just use an AI to teach people, and then have a professor come in to fine-tune the learning and to fine-tune the AI that's responding to the students and make sure that it's not saying things that are incorrect or false. Lots of things like this are just, it's gonna create many job opportunities. It's also going to destroy a lot of jobs. But I think for those who are willing to learn, it can be the advent of ChatGPT can be compelling. Maybe compelling isn't the right word, but it can advance how every individual on the planet learns. Which has both pros and cons, which can be scary and terrifying. But I don't think that we should be fearful of it. Except to the degree that an AI has influence or might be used to influence the opinions, potentially political stances of the people using it. That is honestly my only worry. I'm not worried about lost jobs. I think I read in a newsletter earlier this week that the internet destroyed lots of jobs. I think the ability to communicate over a wire, to just pick up your phone and call people. It's like, imagine how many letters and packages and things like this were sent back in the day. It's like, I suspect that many people lost their jobs because there was no longer this pressing need to send letters on a consistent basis. But it also created many job opportunities for those who are willing to learn. So approaching AI from a fearful standpoint, I don't think is going to be beneficial to you in the long run. approaching it from the perspective of, okay, this is an insanely powerful tool, and like every single tool on the planet, social media, guns, my phone, my ability to call people at any point in time, the tool must be used responsibly or it will be destructive. If I call someone at 2 a.m. every day, that's rather destructive. They can block me, obviously, but at the very beginning, like at the advent of technology, I don't know if that existed. At the I should say the advent of mobile technology, I don't think that existed. ChatGPT, it's like, yeah, just be mindful. Just be mindful. Know what it is that you want. Solidify your understanding of principles so that you can intelligently converse with both it and the people around you. And I guess I'll end with this. Jordan Peterson talks a lot about men and what we can do to be a force for good, to have a positive impact on society in general. And Jordan Peterson says that, I love this statement, he's like, the goal of parents is to make your children as socially desirable as possible. Like, that's your he's like, that's your primary goal, because if society likes your children will generally be more happy. But he also talks a lot about how being able to articulate the things that you want and desire and the things that you believe and the things that are of value to you is a foundational skill and required skill if we want to have a positive impact on society. Which is why I love talking with ChatGPT, because it's like talking to an insanely intelligent 5-year-old who knows a lot about a ton of things, but unless you are articulate with it, unless you're very clear as you speak with it, it's not going to provide your desired outcome. And this is true, that statement. Unless you are articulate and clear about what you want, you will not receive your desired outcome. Is true anywhere and everywhere that you go. Being articulate requires personal study and growth. It also requires a great degree of courage if we're speaking of being articulate and sharing our thoughts, opinions, beliefs with those around us. We must demonstrate courage, or we won't open our mouths. We won't articulate what it is that we want, and so we won't get our desired outcome. ChatGPT is just a great example of that. If you don't take the time to determine what it is precisely that you want and break that down, and I should say as well, train yourself to know what that looks like, to know what it looks like to say precisely what you want, it's not going to give you the desired outcome. It simply will not. And so ChatGPT, I think, is an amazing tool for each of us to raise our level of clarity on what it is that we want, and to also make it habitual to seek clarity as we try to describe what it is that we want. Because, when you try to type something in the ChatGPT, it doesn't give you what you want, you're like, oof, well, that sucked. I gotta change something. I gotta be more clear on this. Like he didn't take that piece and made it the way, or he didn't make it the way that I wanted it to. And so we need to train ourselves habitually to be more articulate. And that is my conclusion from using ChatGPT this week. Dozens of times. If you are not clear, you won't end up where you want. And that's my lesson as well. If you're not clear about where you want to go and you're not courageous in sharing that with others, and you don't purposefully go out of your way to articulate that and try and discover what it is that you wish to do and be and how you wish to show up and how you wish to be, then you won't end up where you want to be either. So, practice with ChatGPT. Leverage this insanely intelligent 5-year-old to determine what it is you want to do, to practice being articulate, to evoke from him what you want, so that when you go and you talk with others, you're able to describe yourself to that level of detail as well. That's it for the short with Daddy Long today. One announcement that I have is I am planning on an upcoming course that will be free for those who opt in, that teaches the foundational technologies that make decentralization work. Like, this will be things like peer-to-peer networks, public-private keys, and I'm going to try and dive as deep as I feel I can without getting too programmatic into each of these pieces, so that people can come away from the course like anybody. I want anybody, CEO, programmer, your average Joe in the street. I want anybody and everybody to be able to take this course and walk away from it having a comprehension of decentralized networks, decentralized currencies, cryptocurrencies, how they work. So, but not at like a programmatic level, just at, well, I should say that and understand all of the pieces, the technological pieces that go into making it work, so they can describe that to someone else. So that's what the course is going to be about. I don't know what to call it. Blockchain Basics is taken by like so many other people, and honestly, I'm not teaching about just blockchains. Like, there's lots of decentralized networks, and they're not all based on blocks. You've got like Nostr, which is notes and other stuff relay, which is probably the funniest acronym I think I've ever seen in the tech space. It's just Nostr, notes and other stuff relay. But they're a decentralized network. They leverage a peer-to-peer network to create some really, really cool stuff. And I'd love for people to be able to understand that as well as cryptocurrencies. So I'll be creating a way for people to opt in to the course and receive an invite to, I believe I'll do it through Zoom or just through my website. I'm not 100% sure yet, but I want to build this course. I have many people in my life who ask me questions like these, and I would love to be able to like, behold, learning right there. Start here. But there we go. That is an announcement. That is the thing that I'm going to be working towards. Not bad. But there we go, strivers. Thank you so much for hopping in. I really, really appreciate it. If this is the first time you've seen, for the YouTube side of things, if this is the first time you've seen me, feel free to subscribe. I'm here to teach Web3 technologies and also be a coach and help you kind of know how to, or just acquire tools that help you progress, whether those be habits, mental models, other. Thanks again for hopping in. Have an awesome Friday. Crush your weekend. Fill it with greatness and adventures. I'll see you next week.